Minecraft is a huge game, and honestly, its optimization is just completely awful sometimes. So in this video, I'm giving you the ultimate optimization guide for both Minecraft Java and Bedrock, so that you can get your game running as smooth as possible for your system. We'll start the video with Java Edition, and then later move into Bedrock. Now, for the purposes of this video, I will be optimizing my current computer on the latest default version of Minecraft. Default settings, nothing changed. I know my computer is an absolute beast compared to all of y'all's, I will admit that, but yeah, even this computer on default without me changing any settings still runs the game at 30 FPS. This is probably close to what multiple of you are running right now. The footage quality is also probably completely dog, so do excuse that. Don't worry though, we're going to optimize my computer, and to do this, we'll look at what we can do in plain old vanilla Minecraft, and then we'll look at some extra optimization mods that can really help you out. First of all, before you change anything though, plug in your computer or laptop. It sounds so simple, but take a look at this. I'm at 30 FPS right now, right? As soon as I plug in my computer, bam. 100 FPS. Yeah, I would say when you're playing Minecraft, just keep your computer plugged the entire time. Of course though, my computer is an i9, your FPS will probably go to 50 to 60, which is still a massive improvement from 30. But if you want even more FPS than that, this is where we'll have to make some in-game adjustments. Now for vanilla Minecraft, basically all the settings that affect FPS are going to be under video settings. You can find this from the pause menu if you just click options. Video settings are right there. I'll just go over all the relevant settings that are actually going to affect your FPS. First of all, we got the graphics right here. This is set to fancy by default, and this is supposed to affect multiple things, like the quality of blocks, weather, etc. But honestly, change the setting to fast instead. Between fancy and fast graphics, I found really little difference. The game still looks great on fast. The only thing it affects a lot are leaves. Fancy graphics has transparent leaves. If you want that for some reason, I don't really care about it. So I would say to just set your graphics to fast. It might not cause a huge FPS bump by itself, but it will contribute. Alright, next up we got render distance. This one is extremely important. It's basically how far you'll be able to see things in the distance, and it's one of the biggest impacts on performance. Of course, if this thing is super high, you're going to be losing way more FPS. The exact render distance you should keep your thing at really depends on your computer. If it's an okay computer, then 10 to 12 or even slightly above that is perfectly fine. But if your computer is on the lower end, you want to keep it closer to 8. This will make the game a bit foggy, but it's definitely still playable, especially in survival where you're mostly on the ground. It's really not that much of an issue. You can still see decently well into the distance. Next up, we got simulation distance. This one basically controls from how far away updates to your world would be registered. For example, if my simulation distance is 5 chunks, a chunk is 16 blocks, so if a piston is moving a block 80 blocks away from me, my game will still register that. But if the piston is outside that 80 block range, it won't move that block until I get closer to it. Now, this thing is set to 10 chunks by default, or 160 blocks, but that's way too much. For a low-end device, 6 to 8 chunks of simulation distance is plenty. That's around 112 blocks, and you really don't need more than that, unless you're building some super complicated automatic farm or something, where you need it to still work when you're super far away. Then we got max frame rate. This one might not seem the most important if your FPS is already super low, but it actually is. This number is basically the highest that your frame rate will ever go, but even if your frame rate is way lower than this value, this thing can still limit it a lot. Right now it's set to 120 by default, right? But you want to set max frame rate to unlimited. There's no bad thing out of that. It'll just help increase the overall FPS. Alright, now let's move on to clouds and particles. Clouds, you of course see them in the sky, but if you're on a low-end computer, I'd recommend to either set them to fast or just get rid of them altogether. It depends on if you're okay with the look of the empty sky though. Personally, I don't really mind that much. Particles, like when you place a water bucket or break a block, honestly, they're not really that important, so set it to minimal if you're on a lower end device. Now here's a big one, bitmap levels, or however you say this word. This thing controls the level of detail in blocks from a distance and is set to the highest level by default. You're just killing your performance by having this at all. Set it to off. You can leave all these other settings. Let's look at our game now. Bam. 800 FPS. Again, guys, I have an i9, so don't take my massive jumps in FPS too seriously, but for you, I'd say it's probably jumped to around low 60s to even 70 FPS now. Already a decent FPS to be at, but it can be improved still, so this is where I'll show you one of the best optimization mods for Minecraft. Not sponsored, of course, but Sodium is definitely one of the best and most accessible optimization mods out there for Minecraft. To install it, you'll first need to download the Fabric installer and click on that file to install Fabric for the latest Minecraft version. Then download Sodium, make sure it's for the Fabric version, not Forge, and in your .minecraft folder, you can see there's a mods folder underneath, so you need to drag the Sodium file right into there. For me, Sodium doesn't increase my FPS significantly, maybe by about 50 to 100 frames, but that's because my FPS is already crazy high without it. For you, I'm sure even on not the best device, it can bring your FPS to around 80 to 100 at the very least. It also offers you some more customizable settings, like weather, you want to set that to fast. You can see it has all these helpful descriptions too, so I don't have to actually waste your time explaining all of these, it'll just tell you, and the level of performance impact as well. All I'll say is only change stuff under the general and quality tabs, don't mess with the performance or advanced tabs, because this is pretty complicated stuff that's vital to how the mod works. I don't really see why you want to turn any of these settings off anyway. There are more performance enhancing mods out there besides Sodium. There's Optifine, Lithium, Iris if you want to research about those, but personally Sodium has really worked the best for me out of all of those options. And keep in mind, despite all these tips I'm telling you, if you're on Java Edition, at the end of the day, your max FPS is really dependent on your system and how much memory you're able to allocate to Minecraft. Until Minecraft adds a true optimization update, there's only so much work you can do with a lower end computer, which just really sucks. So yeah, I just showed you how to optimize your Minecraft on PC, but what about Bedrock Edition? A lot of optimization guys completely ignore Bedrock because apparently its performance is already buttery smooth, or at least they would have you believe. Yes, I'm a PS5 and Windows player, and I do feel your pain. Sadly, for most Bedrock players, you can't download mods to help you, but there's still a fair amount you can do in-game that I'm about to show you. Just like in Java Edition, you want to head to your video settings. Now, I would recommend doing this from the main menu, because Bedrock is kind of weird. Some settings you can't change while you're already in the world, you can only change them in the menu. Anyways, first of all, you want to scroll down to the graphics mode down here. This should not be set to vibrant visuals. For me, it was by default for some reason. These are basically the equivalent of having full-on shaders, and while my computer can handle it, it will most likely kill your FPS, so keep your graphics mode on simple. Now, under the simple graphics option, make sure anti-aliasing or whatever is set to 1, just like bitmap levels on Java. That mainly controls the detail of blocks and stuff, but it's also a big performance killer. Again, max frame rate should be unlimited. Don't worry, it won't crash your device or something, but if you let this thing put a limit on your FPS, then it can potentially start lagging you a bunch for no reason. Don't touch beautiful skies or smooth lighting. Beautiful skies, it seems appealing to just turn this off, but it'll also just straight up delete the sun, which is kind of weird. Not sure why it does that, and with smooth lighting off, the game just looks awful in my opinion. Unless from a visual standpoint you want it to look like older Minecraft versions, I wouldn't really recommend turning that one off. So now that we're done with that section, we're going to scroll up. We got a bunch more options here. First, fancy leaves. Again, like in Java, this will make the leaves transparent with it on and opaque with it off. I don't really mind opaque leaves, so I just leave this one off. Saves you a lot of FPS, especially in jungle or mangrove swamp biomes. There's also this option for fancy bubbles. If you guys don't know, this one controls the bubbles in the bubble columns that you can make underwater. Honestly, unless you have a bunch of bubble elevators in your world for some reason, there's no reason to even pay attention to this. You can just have it on or off. It's really up to you in this case. Clouds, just like Java Edition, can affect the FPS as well, so you can afford to turn this one off as well if you're okay with it. And the final setting we got is render distance. Now, Bedrock is much more efficient than Java when it comes to render distance, so you can be a lot more generous with this number if you want. The game will also straight up tell you if your render distance might be too high for your device, even though for me, that's like 45 chunks, which is insane. On a lower end device, I still say to keep this in the low teens, maybe 15 chunks at most. Reducing this can significantly improve your performance on Bedrock. So now for my Bedrock PC users, we're going to look at a good performance enhancing mod that you can download for Bedrock. Again, not sponsored, it's called Beryllium. I'll leave the link to download this mod in the description along with Sodium, but basically you want to download the top 2 links from this page. That will give you the behavior pack and the resource pack, and from here just click on both of these in your downloads folder, and that that will automatically add them to Minecraft. You'll have to activate both the resource pack and behavior pack from the main menu for your world, and from that point your performance should be a lot better. I have noticed my performance and FPS improve when using this mod. I'm pretty sure it makes the rendering just much more efficient, so your FPS is a lot higher. Combined with all the settings, your game is hopefully running way smoother. If you guys did enjoy this video, then please consider dropping a like and a sub, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.